Do you want to bust your sales quota? Do you want to join the ranks of top 1% sellers? The Top 1% Sellers podcast gives you the insights and the tools to help you achieve your sales greatness. The podcast features sales and services professionals, leaders, and experts to give you the edge you're looking for. Here's your host, Ash Sadiq.
Welcome everyone. This is the Top 1% Sellers podcast, and my guest today is Terry Lancaster, and I have for the first time a co-host with us today, Keith Hanna, and we'll actually get to know about each one of us shortly. We will be talking primarily with Terry, talking about personal branding online, and we'll get some of his own insights on how we can do this as sales professionals, or even people who are running their own businesses, coaches, experts, entrepreneurs who basically are the chief sales officers in their own businesses, and we're going to make sure they walk away with something that's very concrete for them to use in their business right away and get the word out more about themselves and the business that they operate. So with that, Terry, if you can give the audience a bit of a background on you and your current business, and we'll jump into the conversation.
Oh yeah. First of all, thanks for having me, Ash. I really appreciate this. Keith, great to meet you as well. I kind of got interested in this personal branding thing. This all started for me.
Is that my phone?
I believe so. Yeah. There we go. It's over. Yeah, I got started in this whole personal branding thing a couple of years ago. I wrote a book. It was called Better Self-Help for the Rest of Us, and I did that specifically just for me. It was kind of a personal thing. I was going through some transitions in my life. I quit drinking, started exercising, and kind of turned myself around. But in the course of promoting the book and getting myself out there, I started noticing that as I kind of got a bigger image and more awareness of myself online, other things started happening that I hadn't necessarily planned for. People started calling me and giving me opportunities that I didn't know had existed before. I got invited to do speeches. I got invited to, I got called by headhunters. I got called by venture capitalists, and people started treating me different just because my name, it kind of looked online like I was kind of a big deal, even though I was still the same guy. I was at a Christmas party with my family Christmas deal with my family, and my cousin was there, and he's my cousin my age, and we grew up together and played in the mud together and lived, known each other our entire lives. And he came up and wanted me to autograph my book. And I couldn't believe it. This guy's seen me at my worst, and he wants my autograph. And I kind of had this epiphany that the story you tell the world changes your world.
Yes.
And so then that was part of what the book is about. One chapter in the book is about the power of connections and forming networks and helping, letting other people do your heavy lifting. And so once the book came out, and once I got on this track, this is what I'm concentrating on now. And I've been in sales and an entrepreneur my entire life. So now I'm working with salespeople on how they can tell the story that they want to tell to increase their referral network, to boost their online image, to polish their image, to land new customers, and to find opportunities that they didn't know existed before.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Terry. Really glad to have you. And I think this is really something that people struggle with on a daily basis if they're trying to make sure they do business development right, they do sales right. And we'll start off by, and I listened to some of your videos that you share with your bootcamp, and I think we want to tell people about that eventually in the conversation. But if somebody's listening to the conversation today, the very first thing that they need to do to really understand where they stand from a brand perspective, what would be the steps that they should follow?
Well, if you want to know who you are, and you want to know the world's opinion of you,
yes,
there's an easy way to find out, because there is one location where you can find the entire sum of the world's knowledge about any subject, and that's go to Google. If you want to know who people think you are, and you want to know what the sum of your reputation is, and that's all a personal brand is, it's just your reputation, except that now, instead of it being the 17 people in your town that you know, your reputation is online for 7 billion people around the world to see. So if you want to know who you are, Google says who you are. You are who Google says you are. So go to Google, type in your name, Keith Hanna. Go to Google, type in Keith Hanna, and see what pops up. That's the sum total of human knowledge about your existence thus far.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's very right on point. And I would imagine that a lot of people who are working, let's say someone like Keith, he's starting to work as a sales professional. Most of the time he's really selling B2B, but you think of Keith as a person, or someone else is listening to us, when they go to Google, they probably most likely will actually turn up their personal search results, like Facebook, perhaps, maybe
Right.
LinkedIn profile, perhaps.
Right.
Are there some conscious things then that they need to do to make sure that they start more or less building that professional look when it comes to what the search results are going to show?
Well, I mean, absolutely. Google is like a big fluffy puppy, and you can train it to say exactly what you want it to say about who you are. You can train it to tell the story that you want to tell, but you have to take conscious efforts to do that. And Keith, I know you're just getting started in your sales career. How long have you been?
Well, I said in my interviews, I've been selling for 7 years in the Army, selling ideas. And I told Ash, I was like, well, hey, it's a great thing I finally accepted a job offer yesterday so I can be employed for this podcast.
So for a day, you're literally at the cusp. You're taking the leap today.
Yeah. And I, it's selling through the interview process. It gets right to what you're talking about. Selling myself to these companies that want to decide whether or not to take a risk on me.
Yeah, and so whether you are selling a product or whether you're selling yourself, and that's the thing, because at least 2/3 of all hiring managers, the first thing they're going to do when they see your resume before they even call you in for an interview is they're going to Google you. They're going to Google you. They're going to go to your LinkedIn to decide who even to talk to. So the first step, if I was a young man and I was just starting out in the business, and the first thing I wanted to do to take control of who Google says I am is I would go register the domain for my name. Mine is terrylancaster.com. Yours is keithhanna.com. If you do not own keithhanna.com, when we get through today, please go to GoDaddy, go to whichever domain registry you want, and register the domain keithhanna.com. If it's taken, register keithwhanna.com. If it's taken, take the keithhanna.com. But that's going to be with you for the rest of your life. You're always going to be Keith Hanna. Your job may change, your city may change, your career may change, everything about you may change, but your brand is always going to be who you are. And if you own the domain yourname.com, that's a subtle signal to anyone who looks that you are the keithhanna.com. You're the real one. You're the most important of all the Keith Hannas there might be. You are the one. And more importantly than that, it's going to be a signal to Google. When people type in Keith Hanna into a Google search, one of the first places Google is going to look is for keithhanna.com. That's a big signal in their algorithm as to what shows up on that first page. If you Google Terry Lancaster, the first thing that shows up is terrylancaster.com, and I have 100% complete control over what that says.
Yes, which you do in the homepage itself, like as the meta tags that show up in the search results. I tell everyone there's Google's going to take 25 words. Google's going to take 25 words from your LinkedIn page. It's going to take 25 words from your Twitter account. It's always looking for 25 words to put into a snippet just under in their search results. So if you got a web page, you get the web page set up, and the way to do it is first and foremost, you have to figure out what 25 words you want to use. You have to tell the story of you, create the legend of you, and you need to do it in 25 words or less. And you figure out those 25 words and you stick it in the metadata of your website, yourname.com. And that's going to, then you take those same 25 words and you put it on your biography on LinkedIn, and you put it on your Twitter biography, and you put it anywhere else that you know that's going to start showing up, and any other things that you're going to include. You always put those 25 words somewhere, and they're going to start populating that first page of the Google search results. And like I said, if you Google me, Google's going to tell you 6, 7, 8 times on the very front page that I help salespeople and entrepreneurs create an army of buyers who know, like, and trust them before they've ever even met them. And Google's going to tell you that over and over and over again, because that's exactly what I've trained Google to say. Yes.
Wow.
And Terry, this is fantastic. And I want to let people know, we're going to tell them again at the end of the conversation, that everyone listening in should go to terrylancaster.com and sign up for Terry's email-based video bootcamp, which actually includes a number of worksheets that would make a difference in what we're talking about. He actually has a worksheet that will specifically help you articulate what it is that you do and for whom. And we'll talk more about that as the conversation goes on. But Keith, I'd like you to pose one or two questions to Terry, given really where you are today and how you want to move forward.
Okay. Yeah. So Terry, your statement earlier that the story you tell changes your world, it really resonates with me because that's how I'm here in the first place. So I, about 2 weeks ago, decided I wanted to create some options for myself on LinkedIn. And I did that by telling my story. And when I told my story, it just took off. And I think today I'm up to 169,000 views, 1,000 likes, lots of comments. So that created this opportunity with Ash that I didn't even know about Ash before that. And then all of a sudden I'm on Ash's podcast, and that's also how I found out about the job I just accepted. So it changed my world. So I guess my question for you then would be, how, for our audience, when they're getting ready to tell their story, how can they really hone in on what will make their story resonate when they tell it?
Well, I mean, first of all, the story is enormously powerful. The story is that's how human beings interact. For tens of thousands of years, we've gathered around fireplaces to tell each other stories, and that's why Honey Boo Boo is on TV, because it's a powerful story, and people like stories, and people communicate via stories. And I have a buddy who's a sales trainer by the name of Mark Stewart. He told me one time that facts tell and stories sell. You have to. That's how you take your personal story and you weave that in to the story of what it is you're selling. And in this case, we're talking about selling ourselves. So the first thing I try to get everyone to remember about first specifically when you're building that 25-word story, and that's a little bit different than a full-blown narrative. But the quick thing for the 25-word story, and I call this the micro manifesto, is it's not about you. When you're building this and you're creating the image that you want to show up on search engines and on social media and everywhere else, you don't want to make it about you. You want to make it about them. So I got a simple formula for creating this 25-word manifesto, and it's I help who do what. So I help who do what. Who do you help? How can you help them? What problem can you solve? Now, when you're expanding on that, and you're just telling your story, and that's why Google is so easy to train, and it's the entire reason that Google and Facebook and Twitter and everything else exists, is to share our stories. They're basically content manipulation machines. They depend on you to provide the story. And I tell them that if you want to train Google and Facebook, they don't want doggy treats. They want content. They want a new story, and they want your story so that they can feed it to their eyeballs so that they can attract more advertisers. And the key important thing of your story is to make it authentic. People can smell a phony from a million miles away. They can smell it in person, and they can smell it when you're online. So you don't try to puff yourself up. You never try to be something you're not, but just tell your authentic story. This is what happened to me, and if it makes you cry, cry. If it makes you laugh, laugh, and it makes you cuss, cuss. Just be who you are. And fortunately, we live in this amazing time that we've all got one of these sitting on our desk, sitting in our pockets, that gives us instant access to pretty much the entire universe. And we can spread it's a billion times more powerful than Gutenberg's printing press ever thought about being, because we can tell our story and spread it far and wide. But you're not trying to pump yourself up. You just want to tell your story and be who you are louder.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Exactly. That's awesome, Terry. And for people listening in, if all they have been doing is creating a LinkedIn profile, they're not engaging in discussions, but they did the profile, what else can they do to amplify what ends up resulting in the search results?
Well, like you said, you have to engage in conversations. You have to talk about interesting things. I got another buddy, Joey Little, who's a social media consultant. He says that 90% of all people on social media are lurkers. Yes. They create their profiles, and then they never do anything. They go look at what other people are talking about. And maybe they like something every once in a while, and maybe they share something every once in a while. But really, most lurkers are just watching. They're almost invisible. Only 9% are actively engaging and liking and sharing other people's stories and joining in on the conversation somewhere. So that's your first step. You want to join in on some conversations in groups and with other people. Find interesting people, talk about interesting things. But the key, the magic happens with the 1%. 90% are lurkers, 9% are sharers, but only 1% are creators. And creators, the future belongs to the creators. If you can create the content that Google needs, if you can create the content that Facebook needs, if you can create the content that LinkedIn wants to get other people like it and sharing it back, so they're engaging in your conversation, start creating content. Content is where the magic happens, and it doesn't have to be super. Again, we've got this phone in our pocket. This is got the, 10 years ago, no one in the universe had a camera as powerful as this thing that I'm holding in my pocket. It's a HD camera. We went to the moon on a 10th of this technology. We can create videos. We can create podcasts. All it takes is a microphone and a computer to do that. We can, you can create a blog post. I just got off another interview I was doing with a buddy of mine, and his entire content strategy is he finds people that he wants to talk to, and he emails them, "Hey, can I ask you a couple of interviews for an interview series that I'm doing?" And he emails interesting people 5 or 10 questions, and they take 20 minutes to answer his 5 or 10 questions. He brings it back, he edits it, he puts his micro manifesto on it so that it's associated with him, and he brands it, and he posts it on LinkedIn. He posts that on LinkedIn. He's done that a couple of 100 times. It's been shared thousands of times. And that's his entire content strategy, is just interviewing people that he wants to talk to, that he wants to find out more about, helping promote them. And the old saying is, you can get anything you want if you help enough other people get what they want. So find people who are in your industry, people who are leaders in your industry, people who they don't necessarily have to be future customers, but people that you would like to get to know with, people you would like to be in your network. Reach out to them, talk to them, create some content that promotes them, helps push their brand.
Yes,
and
awesome. Yeah. And Keith, I have a question, but I want to give you an opportunity to ask a question. The one I have is actually to serve your purpose as well, but let me know if you have one on your mind now.
Okay. So another thing, I love your little mental models that you use to package a lot of the ideas you have, Terry. And one of them is your online footprint is the new dressing for success.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And and in your book, you talk about how habits, just small habits, can really make a huge impact. So, just going along with that theme of dressing for success, what kind of habits can we create that will really make a huge impact in our online footprint?
Well, we talk about first impressions, and your grandmother told you that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And you were told, I'm sure you were told at West Point, you had to dress for success. You had to look the part. You had to look the role you were supposed to look. And we've always had to do that. But these days, we don't usually meet people in person. Most relationships form online. 1/3 of all marriages begin as online relationships. 60 to 70% of all business relationships begin as online relationships. So dressing for success is literally making sure the internet is telling the story that you want to tell. And you talk about habits. That's from the book, Better Self-Help for the Rest of Us. And we all look and we want to be, we decide we want to have this image, and we look to the people who've already done that. They've already got there. They've got, 100,000 Twitter followers, and they've got the 5,000 maximum on Facebook, and they've got a new blog post coming out every week, and they've got their own podcast and their video show. And we look at that and go, oh man, I can't ever get there. I might as well not even try. But, the Lao Tzu says the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So whatever you're talking about, whether it's personal development, losing weight and exercising, or building your image, it begins with a single step. And that's how habits begin, with a single step. So get in the habit of polishing your online image. Get in the habit of creating new content every week. Get in the habit of engaging in these conversations, and just start. And it's an odd thing, because everyone's looking for instant ROI, And this sometimes takes time. It's going to take a minute. You come out of the gate strong, baby. 190,000 views right off. That's pretty impressive. But it doesn't always work that way. And if you just need to get into the habit of constantly creating something, and the more you do it, the more it adds up, and eventually you'll reach the snowball tipping point, and everything that you've been pushing uphill starts falling downhill. And it's just a question of getting in there and doing the work. And even sometimes when it doesn't look like you can't see the immediate benefits of doing the work, quit concentrating on the results of the actions that you're trying to take, and just think about taking the right action. If you do the right thing, the right stuff will happen.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those interesting things, and I think Keith is going to like this question. One of the interesting things that a seller thinks of is this whole concept of lead time, and how sometimes if I want to sell something to Terry, it might take me a month, 2 months, 3 months for me to actually close the deal.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm working on a deal that I need to close within 2 weeks, I need to be nurturing a relationship for the next 90 days, knowing
Right.
that I cannot jump right into the sale with Terry because we are just getting started to know one another, right? And I
Right.
think social media can be a helpful factor in that regard. How do you do it, Terry? I mean, how do you sort of help nurture the relationship over time before you get to perhaps a selling point?
That's a funny thing. I've been in business. I own an ad agency, and I've owned it for 20 some odd years. And all of my clients are scattered across North America. The vast majority of them I've never met in person. And I did that for a long, long time, and it worked. I mean, we were doing okay. But then social media came along and really took off just about 10 years ago. And so about 10 years ago, I started friending people on Facebook. And, friends want to buy from friends. And you talked about B2B sales a little while ago. There's really no such thing as B2B sales. Every sale is a P2P sale. It's a person to a person. So people want to buy from people they know, like, and trust. People, all things being equal, they would prefer to buy from a friend. And that's why you nurture these leads. And I started working on Facebook. And, I got on Facebook the same reason everyone else did. I wanted to find out, I wanted to look back at, troll on people from high school to find out who got fat and who got bald. And I wasn't even thinking about using it for business. But I started, connecting with, car clients in Edmonton, Alberta. And, suddenly I'd connect with clients in Edmonton, Alberta. And then when I did pick up the phone, I wouldn't even think about it. I would just go about doing my regular stuff on Facebook. And then if I picked up the phone and called them, they would ask me, "Hey, how's your dad doing?" My dad had been ill a couple of years ago. "Hey, how about those Nashville Predators, man? They're rocking and rolling." So they know what's going on in my life because we're friends. And people say that social media friends aren't the same thing as real friends. And those people are wrong, because our lives are online today. And these friends you make on social media, and if you're sharing your actual authentic life, they're just as big a friend as anyone in your life. But that's the key. You have to be sharing your authentic life instead of trying to put on airs and create something. You just need to be you. And if you're going to form friendships.
Yes. Like if you went to a baseball game, you're basically saying, we're at the baseball game, we're having a great time. Those folks who are your connections are seeing that, and they see that you're a normal person. You have your professional life, your personal life. And it's almost like you're sharing some of that with them, and they connect with you. Very interesting. Here is the challenge, Terry, though, and for a lot of sellers, especially if they're working for a corporation, right? Like, and now Keith, that's where Keith is today. And you've got the marketing department responsible for creating content,
Right.
More or less sort of doing the nurturing aspect of the relationship.
Right.
Keith and his colleagues who are more focused on closing and making the numbers work on a quarterly basis.
Right.
How can we then help them with a model that makes it possible for Keith and his colleagues and other sellers listening in really figure out where can they play and be part of the conversation with the potential prospect customer without kind of tripping on anyone's feet?
Well, I mean, you separate the roles. You've got the marketing department, and they're all about the specs and the features and benefits and the products, and they're constantly talking. They're constantly talking about the product.
Yes.
But you're the bottom edge. You're the point of contact. You're where it's person to person. So you don't have to always be talking about the features and the benefits and the sales and closing this deal and closing that deal. I'm talking about just forming the human connection, one-to-one, people to people, so that when it's time to pick up the phone and talk about the features and the benefits and the big sale and the monthly quota and everything that you've got to do, these connections turn cold calls into warm calls. People take calls from their friends. So if you build these connections and make these people a part of your actual life, and you share your actual life with them, when it's time to talk about business, then business can get done. The book Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. This is the perfect example of this. He compares a business relationship to a prize fight. And he says, in any prize fight, you have to go in and you kind of have to soften the opponent up, and you have to feel them out. And that's what the jab is. So jab, you're talking about, the football game that you went to. Jab, you're talking about your kids. Jab, you're talking about the weather. You're sharing and engaging, and you're just jabbing. And then every once in a while, you have to lean back and you have to throw the big right hook, and you have to ask for the order. And sometimes you have to ask for the order online, because if you're not asking for the order, then this isn't a business conversation. So every once in a while, you have to throw the right hook and ask for money. And if you're not, but you can't do it all the time. You can't be the guy who goes into the networking meeting at the Rotary Club handing out business cards. Hey, can I get you a quote? Hey, you need a new tire. Hey, you need this. So you can't be that guy, but you can't be the guy in the corner with a drink in his hand who's never opening his mouth either, because you have to ask for the order every once in a while. But the main thing you can do is form the relationship that gives you the right to ask for the order when the time comes up.
Exactly. That's awesome. And Keith, what I'd love to do now is actually, just given the fact that you're with us for the first time, which is fantastic, and I'd love to actually maybe do a bit of an informative coverage on TechQual, and
Okay.
let the listener hear about it, because I'm not even I would imagine some servicemen and women out there who left the Army may want to find out about it, right? So if you give people an overview of what it is and how it helped you, and then we can also back into the company that you signed up with now, and then we'll come back to Terry and see how we can even use his knowledge and expertise to help you as you move forward.
Okay. Yeah. So TechQualled is the name of the company. Their website is Qualled, QUALLED.com. And this company is very laser focused on taking veterans and training them for sales positions in the IT industry. So for every veteran out there that thinks that might be something they want to do, it's definitely worth a look. They are very good at what they do. You just have to, different from other recruiting companies that say, come to us, trust us, and we'll put you in any job out there. TechQual is very laser focused, so they're able to get good at what they do. So once you get through their very rigorous interview process, you'll do 7 weeks of online training where you're learning about Cisco products, and you're learning about the sales cycle and how to be a salesman. And then that sets you up for the final 2 weeks, where you go down to Fort Worth, Texas, and you do 2 very intense weeks of communications training and role playing. So, they start you off with improv comedy training, so you learn how to build conversations off of what your customer is saying. You have someone videotape you talking and critique that and work on good habits for communicating. And then you just do a ton of role play of everything from cold calls to customer meetings to proposals and closing. And it builds up until the final 2 days. They bring in, executives and sales managers, IT managers, CFOs, CIOs, and they play the role of the customer, and you go through the entire sales process with them. And it's just very valuable training and really gives you some credibility and the ability to translate, your intangible characteristics that you built in the military and really sell those to people looking for salespeople in the IT industry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Fantastic. No, I'm very, very, very happy for you, and anyone that participates in that organization. It's just amazing what you just described, the thought process that they put into it. And that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So let's, we'll definitely go back to Terry here. And when you think about sellers today, Terry, with all the social media stuff that we just talked about and the branding that is required, what do you think is the ideal sort of day in the life of a salesperson today? What they should be doing online, offline, in your own mind for them to succeed?
Well, I mean, I think I don't know that there is any ideal day. Everyone has a different, everyone has different needs, but you need to be talking to customers every day. I mean, you need to be talking to some face to face if that's part of your business. If your business is a face to face business, then you need to be. I used to sell radio advertising, and my sales manager said my entire job was talk to 12 customers a day, belly to belly. We would talk belly to belly, 12 customers every day, and ask for the order. So if that's part of your day, you need to be belly to belly with customers. My day, most of my customers are scattered around. So my belly to belly is interacting with them on Facebook and LinkedIn, everything else. So you need to be interacting with customers. You need to be asking for the order, and you need to be creating the legend of you. And that's the content that's going to build your efforts. So there needs to be some kind of content creation so that you can keep feeding the monster so that your name pops up when people do that. And the easiest thing to do, the easiest way to do this, because everybody loves it, Google loves it, and everybody wants to see it, is to make sure you're asking your customers for reviews. I mean, whatever you sell, reviews drive sales, and that's going to show up at the top of almost every search. And that's what people are looking for when they go online, even before they find out who you are. They're looking for reviews for your widget or whatever it is that you sell. So the first part of your content creation strategy means to be asking for reviews and getting your customers to create the reviews and create the content that's telling your story. So get in front of customers, form the relationships, ask for the orders, and ask for the review.
Yeah. And I think in a B2B environment, then it will actually mean that if he's able to, have them write a recommendation on LinkedIn.
Right.
We bought this solution from Keith. Here's how it helped us. Very much like a use case, but it's kind of very brief, if you will.
Yeah. 50 words. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder then, in your own mind, then, when you think about the flow of that connection with a prospect or a customer between the phone, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, do you think there is sort of a logical or a sane flow that he or she should keep in his mind as he's thinking about his day? Not necessarily how much time, but actually more about sort of the process of touching them across those tools.
Well, I think touch is the key word. You want to be touching constantly, and a touch can be on just talking about your dog on Facebook. A touch can be you promoting your product on Facebook. You can have all these touches. An email is a touch, but most of the time, a virtual touch is trying to lead to a phone call. Hey, pick up the phone and give me a call. I think one thing leads to the other, and you're constantly trying to drive them down the funnel from, okay, they're a loose relationship and they're thinking about our stuff and they want to find out more, and they want to know if they like me. So that's all the high touch stuff that's way up here at the top of the funnel. They're not necessarily buyers right now. You're just forming the relationship. But as they get to the point where they're buying, where they're researching your product and they're trying to find out, is this something I want to buy? You want to be driving that constantly down from social media to email, to pick up the phone and give me a call, to fly to Vancouver and have the conversation in person and close the deal, to take them out for steak dinner. That's the last one down here. Steak dinner, drinks for everybody. So, I mean, everything is a little, you're driving them down the funnel, and you want to keep constantly pushing the progression, moving forward.
Exactly. That's fantastic. I'm glad we covered that, because I think, a lot of people just get lost in social media and they forget that you have to be very conscious of the flow.
Right.
Where do you want to go and kind of move things to the next step?
Right.
Do you have any pet peeves when it comes to social media?
Well, my pet peeve in social media, and I think is the same as my pet peeve in actual life. And I think I try to get everyone to quit thinking about social media as other than real life. It's just real life. It just happens on a screen instead of, it happens in 2D instead of 3D. But my pet peeve is people complaining. People complaining, it doesn't do any good in real life. And it doesn't do any good on social media. I've never figured out why someone would go on social media and complain about the racket their neighbors were making. Well, who cares? First of all, who cares? Second of all, how is that making your life, the people's reading this life, any better? So, I mean, try to keep everything positive. And, sometimes life isn't positive, and, we've all got trials and tribulations, but talking about them and venting and whining on Facebook does no one any good. So Debbie Downer goes to the prom alone. So just keep it all upbeat and keep it light and positive. And if you have a tale of sorrow and woe that you want to tell, go talk to your dog. Maybe he'll love you. He'll stick his head on your lap. But the people on Facebook, they just don't care.
Yes. And if I share one of mine, I've seen some people really commit what I think is suicide when it comes to social media and sales. He or she will go off and have a conversation with a client, and then not necessarily go to LinkedIn and whine about it, but they will come to Facebook and literally actually make fun of that customer conversation.
I see that all the time. It's crazy. Completely just not well guided, because as you said, if people search and some of these things come up and then they see you're making fun of them on social media, it doesn't make any sense. And I've had that conversation with people, and they say, oh, well, my privacy settings are set, or, oh, I know they're not LinkedIn. And so they know that maybe the person they're whining about and making fun of, they know that they're not going to see that. But if you're gossiping about someone else, the people who do see that, that's going to make them question your integrity. Because if you're going to say that about these people, when they're not looking, you're going to say it about them, Exactly. So it doesn't do anyone any good.
Yes. That's awesome, Terry. Keith, any questions before we wrap it up with Terry?
Yeah. So, this is relevant to me. So I seem to have, hit a gold mine, I guess, with selling my personal story on LinkedIn. But, how do I think Ash touched on this a little bit, but how do I really, pivot from that, selling that story, and now connect that with my company, securable.io, and, start selling their story or my story with them in a way that starts bringing people further down the funnel?
Well, you just start. That's the same way you start anything. You just start. So you keep creating content and you keep interacting. And as it becomes natural, you mingle your story in with the business story. You mingle your personal story, and you find snippets of what's happening in your business life, and you combine those with snippets of what's happening in your personal life, and you talk about that. You just keep it real. And as you move forward, the business is going to become a major portion of your life. It's going to occupy, a third to a half of your day. So that's going to be your real life. You're naturally going to have stories to tell, to talk about that from. You're going to have ways that relate to the time you were in Afghanistan, and something that you learned in Afghanistan that's applicable to what you're doing now, and something they taught you at 5 o'clock in the morning at West Point that's applicable to what you just learned yesterday with the IT situation. And there's always going to be ways to mingle those two, and that's all you're doing is you're weaving a narrative from the different elements of your life. And part of your element is your backstory that you've had, and a big element is going to be your business story that's moving forward. And you just weave those into a big tapestry, and that becomes the story of you.
All right, that's awesome.
That's awesome, and I think we definitely recommend people follow Terry Lancaster on LinkedIn. And Terry, I'd love for people to get to know the services you offer. And give them a sense of what's a fantastic starting point for them.
Well, the starting point for everyone is, I said before, everyone's got their cell phone right there on the desk. Pick it up right now and text the word Terry, Terry. Text Terry to 444-999. Terry to 444-999. And what that's going to do is that's going to enroll you in the 5-day boot camp that you were talking about, Ash. And every day for a week, you're going to get a little 5-7 minute video that gives you an action step that you can start working on today to start improving your online image, to boosting your reputation, to building a greater referral network, to creating this army of people who know, like, and trust you. And you enroll in the 5-day boot camp, and that's going to take you through there, and it's going to give you a good foundation to get started on. And at the end of the 5 days, just like everyone else, I'm leading you down a funnel. At the end of the 5 days, I'm going to ask you to pick up the phone and give me a call. Let's schedule a call, and we'll talk about how we might be able to do some work further down the line. Let's connect on Facebook and LinkedIn and everything else and start building a relationship. But if we decide that we want to connect further down the line, there are other ways that I can help. I do keynote speeches for businesses. I deliver workshops on this type of thing. And I do individualized, customized one-on-one training and mastermind groups. And I actually have some online courses too. So once you get through the 5-day free class, decide if it's something you want to pursue. And there's lots of ways I can help. We just have to figure out which way that is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Any questions, Steve?
No, this has been fascinating, and I'm excited to keep learning more.
Yeah, and I went through the boot camp by email, and I watched the videos, the worksheets that Terry provides. Everyone listening in, I think he's giving the house away with worksheets, and he just wants you to get better in using social media to really represent your brand in the best way possible. And I think there are some fine lines for how you can connect your business-to-business person and convert it into person-to-person connection online. And I think that's really a big takeaway for us, Terry. Let's kind of close out by giving people, your best 3 tips for making sure that their personal brand will continue to amplify online.
Well, the first step is you can't get where you're going unless you know where you are. So go to Google and search right now. Find out what story is being told, and then start making diligent efforts to change that story. So once you know what the story is, the first thing you need to do, you need to own your domain name, just like we talked about. That's going to be with you for the rest of your life. Create your 25-word micro manifesto that you're going to include in your domain name, and start adding that to all of your other elements. And then start connecting with people you want to connect with. Start connecting, start telling the story, start sharing their stories, being involved in their lives, and quit whining. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. It's pretty simple, straightforward stuff. And it's all stuff our grandmother told us. We just think it's different because, it's coming out of a computer. It's coming out of my phone. This is new agey, fancy fangled stuff. And it's not. It's just human relationships. It's just communication. And Dale Carnegie says that 85% of your success, no matter what industry you're in, is going to come from your people skills. Even if you're involved in technology, even if you're an engineer, even if you're a soldier, 85% of your success is going to come from your ability to communicate, convince, and convert people to your way of thinking. And we've been doing that the same way for 10,000 years. Now we're just doing it at a distance and in mass.
Exactly. Terry, it's been a pleasure to have you with us. And thank you for just really coming across as you're not holding anything back. And I think that's been fantastic. And for everyone listening, and you've been listening to the Top 1% Sellers podcast, I would love for you to check us out on the C-Suite Radio Network. You will be able to listen to this episode as well as other episodes that we've had. Today, we also had the pleasure of having Keith Hanna with us, a former U.S. Army serviceman who is now joining the high-tech industry as a sales professional. Check him out on LinkedIn. Check out the business he's doing and the solution he's helping bring to market. Check Terry Lancaster on LinkedIn and also at terrylancaster.com. And lastly, if you haven't visited the Top 1% Sellers Academy, and if you are a sales professional who wants to basically raise their game to the next level and join the ranks of the Top 1% Sellers, I would like you to go to top1percentsellersacademy.com and check out the content and the services that we have there for you. In the meantime, have a great day. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, Terry. Thanks, Keith.
Ash, I appreciate you having me. Keith, great to meet you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Top 1% Sellers podcast. Give us your suggestions and guest recommendations by emailing us at ash@connectwithash.com. Thank you also for sharing this podcast with your colleagues and social media contacts. To connect with us on LinkedIn, please send a connect request to ash@connectwithash.com. See you at our next episode. Thanks for tuning in.